Trust, they say, is the foundation of any relationship, whether that be marriage, close friendships, or just that of acquaintances. But what if that foundation is built on sand, ever shifting and ever unreliable? Many walk through life with open eyes and a cautious heart, observing how easily trust can be broken, like delicate glass shattering on the hardwood floors of reality. People wear masks, not just to hide or to shield their true intentions. It is a world where life is as fragile as a spider's web, glistening in the morning dew, but gone with the slightest touch. These betrayals of one's trust can result in the most depraved acts one human can inflict on another, taking those people away from the ones that love them the most. Join us today while we walk through the labyrinth of the mysterious murder of Oki Al Kite. On May 7, 1951, Oki Albert Kite was born in rural Nash County, North Carolina, to Oki Albert Kite Sr. and his mother, Edith Kite. Oki would be raised in neighboring Halifax County, North Carolina during his childhood. His father, Oki Albert Kite Sr., was a well-known dog trainer in the area who co-founded a dog training company called Oki and Hunter Grove. Oki's mother was Edith Davis, a stay-at-home mother who had regrettably passed away at Oki's age of 18. Because of Oki's father's success, who shared the same name as Oki, Oki wanted to distinguish himself from his father, so he started going by his middle name of Al. After graduating high school, Al would attend college at Barton College, where he would obtain a business administration degree. After graduating college, Al would begin work for a large engineering company called Stone & Webster in 1971. Working for them at the Surrey Nuclear Power Plant in Richmond, Virginia, working as a timekeeper. Al had worked hard in his entire life to get where he was currently at, and was beginning to reap the rewards of his hard work. In 1976, Al would marry Gail Kay. Gail had a daughter named Julie from a previous marriage, and Al, who was known for his extreme caring nature and friendliness, would treat Julie extremely well and treat her as his own daughter. Fast forward to 1988, Gail and Al formally divorce. Despite the divorce, Al continued his job, which would eventually take him all over the United States, and even spend some time in Algeria. And in the 1990s, Al would end up in California working on projects as a timekeeper for the famous Livermore National Laboratories in San Francisco. Al would find it difficult to develop meaningful relationships, but despite this, one common thread amongst the vast amount of people who encountered Al in his walks of life was that he was a kind and caring person with virtually no one having a negative thing to say about him. Finally, in 1998, Stone & Webster would require Al to move out to Colorado, specifically Aurora, Colorado, outside of Denver. This was to begin a new project in the area. Al was quite excited to make this move to Colorado, as he was an avid outdoorsman and could not wait for the opportunity to explore the wild lands of Colorado. When Al finally was able to move to Colorado, he purchased a 2-story townhome. After spending a few years in the townhome by himself, Al came to the decision that the home was too big for himself and that he would appreciate company. Al would eventually rent out the basement of his townhome to different renters in the area, earning himself a decent passive income. Al's decision to rent out the bottom part of his townhouse came at a good time, as he was laid off from his job at the engineering company Stone & Webster in 2002, after more than 30 years during a company downsizing. Al would look for a short time for a new job before landing employment at another engineering firm called Carter Douglas. but this time wishing to take less of an initiative and less responsibility at this job, and wishing to spend more time on himself and spending time outdoors. In 2004, Al would meet Linda Angelopoulos, both of which had gone through previous divorces and did not want to make anything formal out of their relationship other than being close friends. Despite the attempt at only being good friends, both Linda and Al were becoming increasingly fond of each other, and their relationship continued to blossom. 2004 was also the year that Al's longtime tenant would inform him that he would be moving. With the tenant moving, Al began to search for a new renter or to take over the lease of his downstairs apartment. Al would post flyers at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, as well as post it in the local newspaper for a prospective tenant. Al had a few responses to the ads placed for his apartment, but Al took a liking to a seemingly overeager man by the name of Robert Cooper, who had contacted him a few times regarding his downstairs apartment. It is unclear as to when the initial contact between Robert Cooper and Al began, but Cooper informed Al that he was relocating from the West Coast and that he was currently staying with his sister temporarily. But Cooper stated that he was looking for a place to call his own. He also informed Al that he would be relocating to the Aurora, Colorado area with his current employer, that of Wells Fargo. Either on April 30th or May 7th, Al agreed to show the apartment to Robert Cooper just shortly before he was supposed to have Linda over for dinner. When Linda arrived, Al told her that Robert Cooper was going to be renting the downstairs apartment and that he was excited for her to meet him. Before Linda met Robert Cooper, she excused herself to use the restroom. But when Linda was finished using the restroom, she would exit the bathroom and be greeted by Robert Cooper, who was quickly making an exit out of the house. Linda said that he didn't say a word to her, and she was only getting a partial glimpse of his face before he left in a hurry. She said that she did notice that he was about 5'8", roughly 180 pounds. He looked to be in his late 30s or 40s. He had curly black hair. He was also very well dressed and carried a cane in his right hand and appeared to walk with a limp. Al assumed that Robert Cooper wasn't interested in renting his basement apartment following his bizarre and hasty exit, but it didn't take long for Cooper to reach out on May 18th. And they both arranged to meet again, with Cooper indicating he was ready to move in. Cooper showed up that day and filled out a rental application. He also brought $500 cash with him, which he gave to Al. Half of it was for a security deposit, while the rest was for rent. Al handed over a set of keys to his townhome. These were simply the keys to the front door of the house, since the basement didn't have its own entrance and can only be accessed by stairs from the main floor. On May 22nd, Al would take Linda to the airport for a short trip out to Virginia Beach. Al and Linda would briefly discuss Al's new tenant, Robert Cooper, but the trip to the airport would be marked by a more significant event. Both Al and Linda would agree to formally start dating each other and call each other boyfriend and girlfriend. Enamored by their new relationship status, Linda would call Al during her layover, and the two would have a cordial conversation, both reiterating their excitement about officially dating each other before boarding her final plane to Virginia Beach. But when Linda would land in Virginia Beach and call Al for a second time, Linda said things were noticeably different. This time, Al was short and quick with his sentences, and seemed to be distracted, but not necessarily being rude. Al would tell Linda to have a good time, and that he would talk to her soon. The call with Al seemed out of character for him. According to Linda, but assuming that he would have said something was wrong if something were actually wrong, she put the conversation behind her and continued with her vacation at Virginia Beach. The tone of the conversation would take a new meaning for Linda when it was discovered just 2 days later that the conversation that had raised some red flags with Linda was the last known conversation anyone would have with Al Kite. The employees of Carter Douglas, an engineering firm in Aurora, Colorado, were returning to their offices on Monday, getting settled back into the work week from the weekend. The employees realized that there was one person missing, that of Okie Al Kite. This struck the employees as weird, as Al was always a punctual employee and very rarely called out. This was so rare and unlike Al that his place of employment became so concerned they called his emergency contact, which at that time was his sister, to check on his well-being. After they attempted to call several times and never received an answer. Al's sister did the same thing, called him several times, never receiving an answer. Once again, being so unlike Al to miss work without a phone call or not answer his phone, his sister decided to call the police for a welfare check. Police arrive at Al's townhome and knock on the door, and did not receive an answer. After getting descriptions of Al's behavior from his sister and co-workers, police decide that they should enter the home regardless of Al not coming to the door, to make sure that Al had not suffered a medical event or an injury. As police enter, they search the house and find nothing amiss on the first floor. Police then begin to work their way down into the basement that Al had turned into an apartment. And when they get down there, they find a horribly gruesome crime scene, unfathomable to imagine, and that would nearly be impossible for any human to forget what they had seen. When investigators arrive, it becomes clear that this was no ordinary murder. The knife wounds and markings on Al would indicate whoever committed the murder put Al through long hours of torture. The first thing that detectives noticed was a wound on the back of Al's head that police theorize was inflicted by a blunt object meant to incapacitate Al. The next thing that detectives noticed was that there were ligature marks on Al's ankles and wrists, suggesting that Al was hogtied and laid on his stomach with his feet pointed in the air. Police then noticed that there was severe damage to the bottom of Al's feet. It appeared that the bottoms of Al's feet were repeatedly struck with an unknown object. Disturbingly, Al also had knives inserted to his ear canals as well as just above the eyes. Al was also stabbed 22 times along with his throat cut. The coroner said that the extent of the torture and brutality that Al was subjected to, death was likely a welcomed mercy by Al. Even the most seasoned detectives were disturbed and disgusted by this case. The coroner's office stated that the murder took place over several hours and more than likely occurred on May 22nd, the same day that Linda and Al made their trip to the airport and solidified their dating relationship. As the police continued to search the apartment, it was at this time that Linda realized that the phone conversation that had seemed so bizarre to her may have occurred during the time just before Al was attacked by Robert Cooper. As the police continued to search the apartment, it became clear that whoever committed the murder made themselves at home inside of Al's townhouse, eating his food, laying in his bed, and using his shower. A discovery in the kitchen sink would begin the dark realization for police that whoever committed this murder was extremely meticulous in their attempt to cover things up. In the kitchen sink, they found several knives from Al's kitchen, along with his car keys, a pen, a glass, and a pot and pan scrubber, all of which had been submerged and soaked in bleach, destroying all DNA evidence. There were no missing valuables from Al's house, except his GMC pickup and his wallet and cell phone were missing, initially making police believe that this was a robbery gone wrong. It was now time for police to start coming up with suspects for the potential murder of Okie Al Kite. Their first suspect would be that of Robert Cooper, the new tenant of Al's, who had signed a lease for the downstairs apartment. Police believe that they had caught a break in potentially finding Robert Cooper when they found a discarded rental application in the trash. Police believe that the information on the rental application would lead them to a potential suspect, that of Robert Cooper. When detectives began to check the information that the mysterious man had provided, they soon learned that all of it was fraudulent. It was clear that Robert Cooper was an alias, and that the social security number provided belonged to an 80-year-old woman in Indiana, and the address that was given to Al was supposedly belonging to Robert Cooper's sister was that of an elementary school. But the cell phone number that was provided belonged to a burner cell phone purchased at a 7-Eleven. Police were able to track down both a burner cell phone along with Al's cell phone. These cell phones were in two separate locations, both in areas that had high homeless populations, presumably so that they would be found and used, all in an attempt to divert the police and waste their time. Police once again believe they may have caught a break when they were able to track down where the cell phone was purchased, and that they would be able to pull the security footage and see the face of Robert Cooper. Unfortunately, Robert Cooper was a step ahead of them. When police asked to see the security cam footage from the day that it was purchased, Robert Cooper had waited exactly 30 days from the day that it was purchased to turn it on. This was the same amount of time that the 7-Eleven recycles their security camera footage, thus leaving no footage of the elusive Robert Cooper. Police turned to the information that was hidden inside of the burner cell phone belonging to Robert Cooper. Kite was not the only person that Robert Cooper had contacted. He had contacted several people looking to rent out apartments similar to Al's. A handful of people Robert Cooper had spoken to had also met Cooper in discussions to possibly become a tenant for their rentals. Suspiciously, though, each one of these people had something slightly different to say about Robert Cooper in regards to his physical attributes, while the essentials of his appearance stayed the same during his approximate height and weight. Nobody was able to give a consistent age range, with estimates ranging between early 30s and late 50s. A professor at the University of Colorado who had spoke with Robert Cooper said that he appeared to speak with an Eastern European accent that she identified specifically as Romanian. However, she said he didn't have a cane and appeared to walk without a limp. One of the constants between these people who spoke to Robert Cooper is that he gave all of them creepy and unsettling vibes. Specifically, the aforementioned professor said that the man's presence was so unsettling that when they met, it made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Next, police placed their focus on Al's GMC truck that was stolen the day of the murder, which was found only a few blocks away. Inside of the truck, they found an ATM receipt for $1,000 that was withdrawn from a Wells Fargo bank just a few more blocks up the road. This excited police as they were hoping to catch a glimpse of the face of Robert Cooper, believing that the ATM machine had taken a picture of Robert Cooper's face when he made the withdrawal. Unfortunately, once again, Robert Cooper was one step ahead of the police, having donned a ski mask to make the withdrawal, again leaving detectives at square one. After looking at Al's bank account, detectives saw that Robert Cooper had not taken all the money of Al's account, leaving a fair amount. And the fact that Robert Cooper did not take any valuables from the home and left the GMC truck, investigators came to a chilling conclusion: that robbery was not the actual cause for the murder, but that Robert Cooper was interested in the murder of Kite solely. Kite was specifically chosen out of several candidates of Robert Cooper's to be the victim of his sadistic murder fantasy. Considering the new motive and the extreme lengths that Robert Cooper went to cover up his crime and identity, detectives came to another conclusion: that this was more than likely not Robert Cooper's first murder and that he had other victims. While detectives struggled to find clues to the identity of Robert Cooper during the search of Al Kite's home, detectives caught a potential break and found a small blood droplet that they tested and deemed did not belong to Al Kite, but belonged to an unknown subject that police believe is Robert Cooper. They ran the DNA through several databases but came up with no results, leaving detectives to believe that Robert Cooper is an extremely sophisticated criminal that has yet to be apprehended. In the first theory, many theorized that due to Al's employment that had him working with extremely sensitive information, including that of the Lawrence Livermore laboratories, as well as a nuclear power plant, that he may have become the victim of some sort of espionage killing. A killing that was trying to extract information from him. Some people provide evidence of foot torture or foot whipping that was present at Some people provide the evidence of foot torture or foot whipping that was present at the bottom of Al's feet. This is a technique well known to be used by Hezbollah shoot-offs, and most interesting, is known to be used in the Balkan regions, specifically that of Romania. This could prove that the professor who said Robert Cooper spoke with a Romanian accent may have been right, and that Robert Cooper may have come from at least the Balkan region or even Romania itself. Theory number 2, maybe the most terrifying, is that the murder of Al Kite is nothing more than a thrill killing with no motive behind it other than Robert Cooper was looking to take someone's life. The third theory, which is, in my opinion, the least likely of all the theories, is that Kite was the victim of infamous serial killer Israel Keyes. Many people point to the fact that Robert Cooper went to such extreme lengths to cover up his identity in roughly similar ways to the way that Israel Keyes did in the past. Other people point to the photograph taken of Robert Cooper in a ski mask withdrawing money from Al Kite's bank, which admittedly does have similar characteristics to Israel Keyes. But there are plenty of reasons to believe that this is not the work of Keyes, specifically that Al Kite was not sexually assaulted during the attack, which is one of the hallmarks of any case involving Israel Keyes. Thank you so much for following this story of Okie Al Kite's unsolved murder. If you found this video interesting, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. This would really help me out to continue to put out this kind of content. But most importantly, whenever someone loses their life in a tragedy or in a tragic manner, it is important to remember that they have family and they have friends that lost a dear loved one that day. Please be respectful in the comments. And until next time, folks, stay safe.